The house stood alone, shrouded in an eerie silence. Its windows, like vacant eyes, stared out at the world. Decaying wood creaked under the weight of unseen forces. This was the house on Harbinger Lane, a place where darkness lingered and secrets whispered. Sarah, a young woman with a haunted past, stood before it. She had come, seeking answers, but fear gnawed at her resolve. The house held an unspoken threat, a promise of something sinister lurking within. She took a breath, steeling herself against the growing dread. The iron gate groaned as she pushed it open, a sound like a mournful cry. Each step toward the house felt heavier than the last, as if an unseen force was trying to push her back. She paused at the threshold, her hand hovering over the tarnished doorknob. With a deep breath, Sarah turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing a darkness so profound it seemed to have a life of its own. The air inside was stale and cold, thick with the scent of decay and the weight of forgotten memories. She stepped inside, the door clicking shut behind her, sealing her fate. Sarah's flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating dust motes dancing in the stagnant air. Cobwebs clung to every surface, remnants of years of neglect. She moved cautiously, her footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. She had come searching for answers about her family history, drawn by rumors and whispers about the house on Harbinger Lane. Her grandmother's stories, once dismissed as fairy tales, now held a chilling significance. The house seemed to pulse with a dark energy, a silent acknowledgement of its sinister past. A sudden noise, like the scrape of metal on wood, sent a shiver down her spine. She froze, listening intently, but the sound was not repeated. The house seemed to be toying with her, amplifying her fear with every creak and groan. Despite her growing unease, Sarah pressed on. The need for answers outweighed her fear. She moved deeper into the house, each room revealing more decay and fueling her apprehension. The air grew colder, the darkness more oppressive, as if she were descending into the belly of a beast. The air grew noticeably colder as Sarah entered what was once a grand dining room. The remnants of a once lavish feast lay scattered on the floor, now covered in dust and cobwebs. The air hung heavy with a palpable sense of dread. A sudden draught whispered past her ear, sending a chill down her spine. It carried the faint scent of decay and something else, something unfamiliar and unsettling. She turned, her flashlight beam darting around the room, searching for the source of the breeze. There was a window slightly ajar, its glass cracked and filthy. As she approached, the wind moaned through the opening, sounding almost like a voice. It spoke of sorrow, of anger, of a darkness that refused to be silenced. Sarah reached out to close the window, her fingers brushing against the cold, damp glass. As she did, she felt a sharp, stinging sensation, like a static shock run up her arm. She recoiled instinctively, her heart pounding in her chest. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. The whispers started subtly, like the rustling of leaves just beyond the range of sight. At first, Sarah dismissed them as the wind playing tricks on her nerves. But as she ventured deeper into the house, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves, carrying fragments of conversations, snippets of long-forgotten arguments. They spoke of betrayal, of madness, of a darkness that consumed all who crossed its path. She stopped in front of a wall where the wallpaper had peeled back, revealing strange symbols etched into the plaster beneath. The symbols seemed to writhe and shift in the dim light, as if alive with some malevolent energy. As she touched them lightly, the whispers intensified, swirling around her like a vortex of despair. The whispers were driving her mad, filling her mind with images of horror she couldn't quite grasp. She had to escape this house, this place of whispers and shadows, but an unseen force seemed to hold her captive, drawing her deeper into its sinister embrace. In the attic, amidst cobwebs and discarded memories, Sarah discovered a heavy wooden chest tucked away in a darkened corner. It was ornate, crafted from dark wood and adorned with strange, almost grotesque carvings. The air around it felt thick, heavy with a sense of foreboding. The chest was locked, its heavy iron hasp secured by a lock of intricate design. Sarah felt an overwhelming urge to open it, as if something within called to her. It was a compulsion she couldn't resist, a siren song from the heart of the darkness. She searched for a key, her fingers trembling with anticipation and dread. In a dusty corner, she found a small, tarnished key, its shape strangely familiar to the lock on the chest. It felt cold to the touch, as if it had absorbed the chill of the house itself. With bated breath, Sarah inserted the key into the lock. It turned with a heavy click, the sound echoing through the silent attic. As she lifted the lid, a wave of cold, fetid air washed over her, carrying with it the stench of decay and the unmistakable scent of death. Inside the chest, nestled amongst yellowed parchment and decaying fabric, lay a small silver hand mirror. Its surface was dull, tarnished with age, yet it seemed to pulsate with a faint inner light. As Sarah reached for it, a long, cold finger brushed against her hand. She recoiled with a gasp, her heart pounding in her chest. Standing in the doorway, shrouded in shadows, was a tall, gaunt figure. Its eyes, like glowing embers, seemed to burn into her soul. The figure moved with an unsettling grace, gliding towards her as if it were a phantom, not bound by the laws of physics. Fear threatened to overwhelm her, but Sarah stood her ground, her gaze fixed on the apparition. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to control it. The figure didn't answer, but a low guttural growl emanated from its throat, sending shivers down her spine. It was the sound of pure malice, of something ancient and evil. The figure lunged, its long, sharp fingers reaching for her throat. Sarah instinctively raised the silver mirror in defense, its dull surface suddenly flashing with a blinding light. The figure shrieked, a sound of pure rage and pain, and recoiled as if burned. As the light faded, the figure was gone, vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Sarah stood there, trembling, the silver mirror clutched tightly in her hand. She had caught a glimpse of the truth, a horrifying realization that sent a wave of nausea through her. She looked down at the mirror, its surface now clear and reflective. Staring back at her was not her own reflection, but a distorted, grotesque image. It was her face, yet not hers, twisted by some unseen force, her eyes glowing with the same malevolent light as the figure in the shadows. The whispers, the cold, the shadowy figure. It was all connected to her, to the mirror, to the house itself. She was not just a visitor seeking answers. She was a part of something far older, far darker than she could have ever imagined. Sarah tried to drop the mirror, to rid herself of its chilling touch, but her hand wouldn't obey. It was as if the mirror had a will of its own, its cold, smooth surface clinging to her skin. She was trapped, bound to it, to the house, to the darkness that permeated every inch of her being. The whispers returned, louder than before, swirling around her, filling her mind with terrifying images and fragmented memories. They spoke of a lineage steeped in darkness, of a curse passed down through generations, culminating in her. She was not Sarah, not anymore. She was the embodiment of the house's darkness, the inheritor of its twisted legacy. The line between reality and nightmare blurred, consumed by the shadows that now claimed her as their own. The house on Harbinger Lane had claimed another victim, its hunger for souls eternally insatiable. Sarah's cries were swallowed by the walls, her fate sealed within its decaying embrace. The darkness had won.